The catastrophe knot, what is it? Where is it applicable? Why would you do it? Do you have to do it? Is it a bad idea or is it a good idea? It stems from the guiding and recreational side of the house. And for good reason, because usually in those environments, it's a single rope technique. It's not organized rescue where we're commonly doing a 2-rope system. So there's inherent redundancy when we do purpose-built rescue or you're part of a rescue team. But a catastrophe knot, you could maybe throw it in the same category as a stopper knot or a backup knot, but we typically think of it as some loop that we tie in our line that's untensioned, and it's going to be an overhand or a figure 8. This is just a sloppy overhand, and then we clip it back into, like, let's say for example here we're operating devices at an anchor and we protect ourselves in case we screw up. It has the most applicability, I think, in when we want to do a line transfer or take components out of our system that are under tension, transfer tension over to the other things. That implies that we have to take things apart and then reconnect other things. And then whenever we do that, there's an increasing risk. And it has to do with the complexity of the gear, whether it's component based or purpose built or we're improvising, as well as is it dark out? Are the environments crappy? Are we distracted because it's cold or we're overly hot or we're in an awkward position? And then our experience level. How often do we do this? And how comfortable is the person that has to do these steps? How familiar are they with doing them? So if we tie a catastrophe knot on the back end of our system with the hope that if we screw up catastrophically when we're doing these procedures, that we'll at least still have the rope, and there would be a shock load, of course, if things fall, but at least we didn't completely lose it. Passing knots is kind of the most familiar thing that people think about when they transfer tension from one line to the other. So here I have a 2-tension rope system. It's not mirrored. So we've got a purpose-built thing, a Maestro, and we have our component-based thing. In this case, the roll clip foot, but I don't really care about the flip. I'm just going to leave it in the pulley, and they're both set up for lower. So this is a lowering system. It's a 2-rope system. But let's pretend for a second that we didn't have this second line here, and the yellow was not in play, and all we had was a single rope technique, the red, and we're lowering out on it. And now we have another rope, and we tie the rope together, and we're going to pass this knot through this component-based descent control device, basically. I would argue that regardless of your skill level or how comfortable you are, you should probably do a catastrophe knot on the back end because you're only on a single rope. It's a single rope technique. So if you screw this up, there's no like secondary rope system, whether that's a 2-tension rope system or a dedicated belay line, doesn't matter. Like, you should probably do this. The complexity, in my opinion, with the component-based system and trying to pass this knot, it's a higher complexity than trying to pass through on a Maestro, in my opinion. And so when you have more things you have to deal with, it increases the complexity. And you could argue that even with a 2-rope system, if I have to pass this knot through this component-based roll clip flip system, it's a good practice to just put in a catastrophe knot. It can't hurt. At any time that you put in a catastrophe knot, is it a bad idea? I'd say no, it's fine, it can't hurt. But do you have to? Depends. So, single rope technique, yeah. Component-based system, yeah, good idea, but not like crucial. We're also not going to use a fancy set of 4s. We're just going to do the radium load release hitch. So what have I done? I've given myself hopefully enough loose material here that this can get through all of this. So if I tie my catastrophe knot really close down here, I kind of screwed myself because now this is terminated at the anchor. And if I want to pass this knot, I don't have enough material here to get this through. So I want to give myself ballpark enough bite. And granted, like if I give myself a lot of rope before I tie my catastrophe knot, that's potential for more shock load, especially on a single rope technique if I screw up. So I have myself a generous length to work with. And let's do our radium load release hitch. The back end of our rope. Got it. I need a prusik up front to grab it. In this case, a 3-rop VT is symmetrical, is perfectly fine. Do my radium load release here. then I'll just dog this off. One, two. And then I continue. Once I have this set, I find my brake strand on the red, break that tension, ease out. So doing that line transfer, dead leg, the radium load release holds everything. And then I can move this knot through all this mess. So you can see how much rigging was involved and how many steps I had to make or to take in order to achieve that transfer. So just further justifies maybe they need to tie a catastrophe knot, because things can get confusing. There are a lot of steps, a lot of chords, and this is improvised rigging. This is something that you do like in the backcountry, or when you're going light and fast and minimalist approach, or single rope technique. Purpose-built descent control device, the Maestro, it auto locks. And let's back up and talk about if I'm gonna walk away from this. If you walk away, make sure you're in high friction mode. Yeah, I can probably walk away just like this and not have to tie anything back here. Would I have to tie a catastrophe knot onto the anchor back there? I'd say no, you don't need to. But it's a good idea to just to do something if you're gonna walk away. As a universal sign that says, oh, I've locked this off. You can tie the catastrophe knot, or you can just tie like an overhand on this in front of it. That's like a sign that says, oh, I've walked away, and it's locked off, but it does auto lock. So I wouldn't call that a catastrophe knot per se. Here, single rope technique, even with a dedicated purpose-built auto locking device, if I had to pass this knot on the lowering system, would I want to tie a catastrophe knot? Yeah, you would, because you don't have this here. It's not a two-rope system. Now, if this is here, easy to do, you don't need a catastrophe knot. You would just take on your secondary. If this is a belay, great. If it's a two-tension system, whatever. Just make sure that the load is static. All the load is on here, and I can continue to lower out on my Maestro. This goes slack, and all the weight is here. Now I can do whatever I want here. Do I need to tie a catastrophe knot here? I'd say probably not, since you're already backed up. And in this case, you don't even have to do anything. You can just take the whole device out completely and just move the knot over to the other side without even using a set of fours or anything like that to transfer the tension. And we call it good. And now we're done. And now we just have to lower out on this system until this one gets under tension. And then if we're doing a two tension lower, then we rock and roll with both systems. Or if this is a belay, you can ease out on your belay until this one takes, and then we continue to lower. However, if both of these ropes have been put in service at the same point in time and they're the same length, chances are this rope and this rope will both have a knot in the same place. And so transferring tension and doing this might not be feasible by just letting the other rope system completely hold. Maybe, maybe not. But let's just assume that we wanted to actually transfer tension using a set of fours with our Maestro. Okay, so it's a lowering system. My knot, I need to pass, I stop with whatever, 6 to 12 inches is fine before it butts up against on the brake side. And now I throw in my set of fours. Okay. And so much fewer steps with these purpose-built things. Take all the slack out of it and lower. Just make sure this is taut. Lower on my Maestro. It goes out. This becomes slack, but the tension is held in my set of fours, and now I can take the tension out of my Maestro, de-rig it all together. All the while, don't really need a catastrophe knot on the back end of this device. And you could argue, well, if it was a single rope technique, would I need it? I'd say it's still a good idea, for sure, to put in a catastrophe knot, even with these types of components, on a single rope technique. Not as critical as the component-based stuff, the more improvised rigging, but I'd still say you probably want to do it because you're on a single rope. If you screw this up, there is no fail-safe. So, get my knot butt up against it, and now I have to get this dead leg back under tension after this rope grab here, and I can do that by releasing out on my set of fours until it goes completely slack. And now the set of fours is slack, and I de-rig it and get it out of my system, and now I'm back on my purpose-built descent control device. Okay, so catastrophe knots in the context of either rappelling or ascending when you need to pass a knot. Regardless of if I have a full body harness or whatever device I'm using, I don't really care. It's a single rope technique. And if I'm rappelling and this is the knot that I have to pass, I should probably tie a catastrophe knot because this is my only rope. So I go on further down the line, tie a knot in, just make sure there's enough belly that I can actually do these transferring maneuvers over and then clip it back into me. And I'm good to go. So I'd say this is a very good idea. It's prudent, you should probably do that. It's even more important for the novice or somebody who doesn't have as much experience. Yeah, just default to tying a catastrophe knot. In the guiding world, they'll like dock you points for some sort of AMGA test or whatever for not doing it. But in the end, there's always gray area, nothing's absolute. So if it's a single rope technique, yeah, probably a good idea. You probably should tie a catastrophe knot, especially if you're using things that aren't like purpose built. This is a rig, but if you're using just like an ATC or an aperture blade device or just an 8 plate or something, yeah, even more reason to do that catastrophe knot because now you're doing improvised rigging. I need to attach something else and transfer off this tension. And so I'm doing all these maneuvers. I tie my catastrophe knot well below the knot in case I screw up. And what am I going to use to transfer tension? Anything I want. It doesn't really matter. It could be soft rope grabs, friction hitches, camming rope grabs, tooth rope grabs, something that will grab the rope. So what do I have here? I got like a curl, a small curl. I'll just put here. I want to keep this pretty close to the device because if I put this way up here and I lower out on my device at transfer tension, then I can't reach that way up high. So whatever I'm using, I put pretty close to my descender. And I need something like a cow's tail as another contact point, because really it's the cow's tail that's really going to hold my weight. So there's a little bit of slack in the cow's tail. I'm going to take all the slack out of it and make it taut. And then I'm going to lower my descender. And when I lower on the descender and this goes loose, I give myself enough distance on that knot that I have to pass so that it doesn't get hung up on the descender, and I can take it out. And now for all practical purposes, I'm weighted on a tooth rope grab. It has to be a full point of contact or connection in order for me not to fall. If it's a half a point, logic would say that I would fall to my death. So there's a little confusion on using tooth cam rope grabs and where you can get away with it. If it's under tension, or even if there's less than a foot of free fall potential like that, as long as I keep that free fall potential to a foot or less, this counts as a full, undisputed contact point, not a half. I'm fully weighted on here, and now I just put my descender, or if it's an ATC or whatever else, I just rig it directly below the knot. And then butt the knot up against here, and then if I'm using improvised rigging, that's why I would have more belly before the catastrophe knot, so I could actually do like a munter mule tie off or dog it off with 2 half hitches or whatever. But here on the rig, it's a purpose-built thing, so it auto locks. I can be just fine like that. And this is where I would use my foot loop to step up and transfer that tension. So the beauty of the progress adjust is I can step up with the foot loop onto the curl and then articulate the cam, lower myself out on it until the rig takes all the weight. And that's why I don't want this to be too far up, because I need to retrieve that. And now back on. Now I can take the catastrophe knot out and then proceed on. Do I need a catastrophe knot if I have like a mobile fall arrest ASAP backup? So now we're looking at 2-rope systems. I'd say not really. I mean, this will arrest your fall if you screw up. So now it's not as important to tie a catastrophe knot here if you're doing line transfers, whether you're passing a knot on the ascension or if you're going down on a rappel, because this will save you. But you know, I'd rather not have this engage and me actually fall, even though it will arrest me. I'd rather Maybe if I'm not super comfortable, I can do that catastrophe knot. It's all about the gear you're using. Is it component based? Is it purpose built stuff? Are you in the industrial rope access setting, a rescue, organized rescue setting, or are you like out in the mountains doing guiding work or whatever? You just make a judgment call. I'd say if you're on a single rope, yeah, catastrophe knot for sure. 2-rope system, use your best judgment. I'm not gonna do it, but you're not wrong if you do it. So, just considerations.